The town of Lake Ridge, nestled among the ancient trees and surrounded by an impenetrable ring of forest, was a place where dreams and nightmares fused into one. Here, among the narrow streets and houses with steep roofs, stories about the Stanton house were whispered. This house stood on the very outskirts, as if waiting for someone brave enough to cross its threshold. Its facade, weathered by time and entwined with ivy, breathed centuries-old silence and mystery. The disappearance of the Stanton family was the most enigmatic tragedy in the town's history. 50 years ago, they vanished overnight, parents and two children, leaving no more trace than shadows on the floor. Rachel had known these stories since childhood. She remembered sitting under a blanket with a flashlight, reading about the ancient legends of Lake Ridge while the wind scraped against the windows and strange sounds echoed from the forest. Now, working as a journalist for the local newspaper, she felt trapped in the monotony of mundane events and reports about town fairs and charity yard sales. But the tale of the Stanton house lingered in her mind. Now, grown and determined, she stood on the brink of uncovering the very mystery that had haunted her since childhood. On the night Rachel decided to take her daring step, the moon hung over the town like a faded eye. She brought along her camera, an old notebook filled with notes, and a flashlight, and set off for the house that the town preferred to ignore. Her legs trembled as she approached the dark, massive door, gnawed by time, and pushed it open. Inside, the air was thick, like an old fabric soaked in dampness. The walls were adorned with photographs of the Stanton family, their glazed eyes staring out. The mother cradled a baby, her expression tinged with unspoken worry. The father stood serious, embracing a daughter whose gaze was too intense for a child. Rachel examined the photos until she felt a cold draft touch her neck, even though all windows and doors were shut. Walking down the hallway where the floorboards groaned as if protesting her presence, she reached the kitchen. In the center stood a table with plates still set, covered in a layer of dust. One of the plates held remnants of food, long hardened into an unrecognizable mass. Rachel jotted this detail down in her notebook, but her hand trembled when she heard a soft, muffled knock from the far corner of the room. She raised her flashlight and shone it towards the cabinet. At first, nothing moved, but then the door creaked open. Inside, amid antique dishes and glasses, lay a child's toy, a rag doll with button eyes. The doll looked new, as if someone had placed it there recently. The flash of her camera illuminated the room, and Rachel, holding her breath, captured the scene. A rustling sound echoed, as if someone unseen had dashed past, leaving behind a faint, musty and rotten odor. Hastily closing the cabinet door, Rachel continued down the hallway. The massive double doors at the end led to the living room. She pushed them open and found herself in a room crowned by a grand piano, covered in a gray cloth. Her fingers shook as she pulled the cover back, revealing the keys marked with sheet music, scrawled with strange symbols. "You came for a story, didn't you?" a voice said suddenly, high-pitched and childlike, but with an odd echo, as if it came from several mouths at once. Rachel spun around, but no one was there. Her heart pounded and her fingers turned cold, reluctant to let go of the flashlight. Trying to steady herself, she recorded the voice on her recorder. Just as she took a step back, a reflection appeared before her. The boy from the photographs. He was short, in old-fashioned pajamas, with eyes too empty and too dark. His lips didn't move, but the voice spoke again, louder this time, filling the entire room. "You will not leave." Behind the boy in the reflection stood a figure of a woman, tall and gaunt, with twisted features and eyes that burned like embers. The room began to shudder, as if the house were waking from a long slumber. The sound of the piano filled Rachel's mind, even though the keys remained untouched. It was a haunting melody that made her skin crawl. "We're all here," the woman whispered as she stepped forward. "And now, so are you." Rachel felt her legs weaken. Panic gripped her, and without thinking, she bolted toward the door. But it slammed shut in her face with a loud bang, the house filled with whispers and footsteps echoing through the halls. Rachel woke up to the first light of dawn streaming through the window. The house looked lifeless, as if the night's events had been just a nightmare. But the diary found lying beside her testified otherwise. Its pages were scrawled with pencil marks, with words etched in frantic handwriting, describing the night's horrors and the cries of children. A week after publishing her article about the Stanton house, the town was abuzz with renewed whispers. But Rachel knew that her midnight visit had not gone unpunished. The sound of footsteps in her apartment, whispers behind the door, and the boy's reflection in glass told her that the house does not let go that easily.